Who is behind ID 2020? As we can see, Accenture, Microsoft, the Rockefeller Foundation, and Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance. Who is behind Gavi? Of course, Bill and Melinda Gates.
Eventually, what we'll have to have is certificates of who's a recovered person, who's a vaccinated person.
We are looking at an immunity certificate, how we can, how people who have had the disease have got the antibodies and therefore have immunity, can show that, and so get back as much as normal as much as possible to normal life.
Why do you think ID 2020 announced just before the outbreak in September of 2019 this? ID 2020 and partners launch a program to provide digital ID with vaccines. So ID 2020, what is that? Well, we need to fully understand this because it is the centerpiece for the entire future digital system. This is the Global Digital Identity Alliance that is aiming to create a digital ID for every person on this planet. And the backers, the people behind this alliance, are some of the most powerful people in this world. From last week's video, we know that Bill Gates is highly involved. He tries to hide it by not directly associating the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation with it, but Gavi, the Vaccination Alliance, is one of the founding and main contributing members, of which we know Bill and Melinda Gates founded in 1999 with $750 million. But we just dug into basically Bill last time, as in his recent Reddit AMA, he spilled the beans on digital certificates for coronavirus testing and vaccination. But Bill is just one little piece of this. Who else is behind it? Well, as we can see, another founding member is the Rockefeller Foundation. And we didn't dive into that last time, so let's do it. If you know anything about the Rockefellers, you know they are basically American royalty. They are a family of the Illuminati, one of the controlling families from across this world. And the webs of power they have spread into the far reaches of every aspect of society. Just look at the groups involved with both the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, the CIA, the Federal Reserve, literally every other charitable or global brand, even the WWF.
If he throws him up on the other side,
No, not that one, the World Wildlife Foundation. But now we can also add ID 2020 to that list, as it's something the fellers have had their paws in, and they have been planning this for quite some time. May of 2010, the Rockefeller Foundation releases this report in collaboration with the Global Business Network, Scenarios for the Future of Technology and International Development. And on page 18, we get a glimpse into their future world. They call it Lockstep, and it's a world of tighter top-down governmental control and more authoritarian leadership. And they start this off with a prediction. 2012, a pandemic hits. Remember, this was written in 2010, which infects 20% of the population and kills 8 million people. The pandemic is also deadly on economies. International mobility of both people and goods screeched to a halt, debilitating industries, breaking supply chains, and locally shops and office buildings sat empty for months. Doesn't that sound familiar? Well, it gets even spookier. The United States is blamed for accelerating the spread for its leniency, while countries like China fared better as they enforced a strict and mandatory quarantine for all citizens. And let's continue. During the pandemic, national leaders around the world flexed their authority and imposed airtight rules and restrictions, from the mandatory wearing of face masks to body temperature checks at the entries to communal spaces like train stations and supermarkets. Even after the pandemic faded, this more authoritarian control of oversight of citizens and their activities stuck and even intensified. At first, the notion of a more controlled world gained wide acceptance and approval. Citizens willingly gave up some of their sovereignty and their privacy to more paternalistic states in exchange for greater safety and stability. In developed countries, this heightened oversight took many forms. Biometric IDs for all citizens. Doesn't that sound like what is happening? And the biometric ID, is it coming? Well, those Rockefellers in 2010, they knew it was coming, a biometric ID. Why do you think they are a part of the ID 2020 Foundation as a founding member? This was their plan all along, and they told us that nearly 10 years ago.
After that,
House in March 2017 in the White House. In both of those two meetings, he asked me if vaccines weren't a bad thing, because he was considering a commission to look into ill effects of vaccines, and somebody, his name is Robert Kennedy Jr., was advising him that vaccines were causing bad things, and I said, no, that's a dead end, that would be a bad thing, don't do that.
An issue that really grabbed me as urgent were issues related to population, reproductive health.
But did you come to reproductive issues as an intellectual?
When I was growing up, my parents were always involved in various volunteer things. My dad was head of Planned Parenthood, and it was very controversial to be involved with that.
How about Bill Ackman of Pershing Capital? He turned $27 million into $2.6 billion in March alone off coronavirus bets, increasing his wealth by 11%. So he obviously has some insider info. And Bill Ackman is part of something special, the Giving Pledge, which was founded by Bill and his wife and Warren Buffett in 2010, where all these scummy billionaires got together and pledged to give away their wealth. Well, 10 years later, they all lied, and each and every one of them are richer. But this just connects Ackman right back to Bill Gates. And what did Ackman just tweet? I am beginning to get optimistic. Cases appear to be peaking in New York. Almost the entire country is shut down. Hydroxychloroquine and antibiotics appear to help. There is increasing evidence that the asymptomatic infection rate could be as much as 50 times higher than expected. If this is true, the severity and death rate could be much lower than anticipated, and we could be closer to herd immunity than projected. Highly accurate antibody tests and scaling production and distribution, which will definitively answer the question hopefully soon. One could imagine a world in the next few months where everyone is tested, and all but the immune compromised go back to a socially distanced but more normal life. We wear bracelets or carry a phone certificate, which indicate our status and track infections where they emerge. Track, trace, and find out if you got the